But so I don't know what it's about, but I didn't want to just hand something to defense counsel without having a discussion about it.
Appreciate it.
So for now, I'm just going to hold on to it and we will proceed. Do we, are all the jurors here?
Yes.
And is the witness here?
I can double check on it.
He's outside.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get the jurors.
Did you mention this for your facilities? Yes. Okay. So that one's on me. Thanks. I owe you. Uh-huh. That's okay.
Not nearly as much as he uses.
Okay.
Tuesday, right?
Yeah. You didn't get scanned, right? The scan. We're having a lot of problems with the scan not happening.
Okay, if you need me to do something or inquire, let me know what's going on. Not right now because the jurors are coming in.
Morning, Ross.
Good morning, good morning. Hi. Open library doors. Good morning, sir. Good morning, young lady.
Sir.
No, thank you. Please be seated. Come to order.
Counsel stipulates the presence of the jury.
Yes, sir.
Does defense counsel stipulate?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, folks, good morning. I do apologize for keeping you waiting in the hallway this morning. My morning calendar took a little longer than expected, so I do appreciate your patience. With that, let's go ahead and get the witness back up on the witness stand.
My apologies, young lady. It's good, just make your way right back up.
All right, you can go ahead and have a seat. You're still under oath from yesterday, okay?
Okay.
All right, great. Mr. Liederman, you want to continue your cross?
Yes, ma'am. Just 1 second, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Truax.
Good morning.
Okay. I just wanted to hit a couple more points, and then I'll let you be. What, do you recall what Ms. Mack was wearing the night of the incident?
T-shirt and some sweatpants.
When you things after he let you up and you had the discussion, what things were you talking about?
My clothes?
When you met with the district attorney on the first time, about 2-3 weeks after the incident, who was there in the room with you?
I believe it was Jacqueline and Rob.
Just the two of them?
Yes.
So to be clear, that's Mr. Stevens and Ms. Booth were here?
Yes.
Just wanted to...
Was there an investigator named Mr. Acuna there? A-C-U-N-A?
Yeah, that name does ring a bell.
The photos that we saw earlier, especially the ones with a finger holding your eye down, who took those photos?
Jacqueline did.
Ms. Booth?
Mrs. Booth took that.
And was that meeting video recorded?
I'm not sure. I can recollect, actually.
2.5 years ago.
Well, it's been a little while.
Yeah. Your most recent the one I think you said was about 2 weeks ago, that was video recorded?
Yes.
And do you know whether it was audio recorded? I'm talking about the initial statement in August, September of 2014.
If there was audio recording of that meeting, I don't recall.
Were you ever given a report or notes of that meeting to go over?
I don't believe so.
Are they, you looked at, you know what? Without opening your binder, can you tell me what documents you were provided?
Copy of the police report, a copy of my original statement that I typed up in the Word document, and then a copy of the hearing minutes.
The preliminary hearing transcript as well?
Transcript, that's what it is. They're all stapled together, I have that.
Okay. And by your police reports, that's, you were talking about the handwritten statement by
Correct.
Officer Truax?
Correct.
All right. You may not remember this, it was a long time ago, but there was some, you testified that there was some confusion between your statements or some perhaps misinterpretation by Officer Truax between your statements, what you said, and what she wrote down. Do you recall testifying to that?
I recall saying something like that. It was really just in reference to the last item that was notated at the end,
Okay.
that it wasn't in sequence.
Okay.
But that's because it's something that I had said when the statement was finished, and then I gave her that tidbit at the end, and she put it out of sequence because she had already handwritten it, couldn't go back and put it in order.
Okay, I'm talking about something different, where you told her, if you recall, telling her sort of one thing, without discussing what it is, I don't know that I recall, but telling her one thing that had kind of multiple parts to it, and she only wrote down one part. That sound familiar?
No.
Give me a sec, we'll see if I can find it. No.
Yeah, I'm just not sure what the question is.
I understand. What was your condition, mental state, when you wrote what we've been referring to as the typewritten report about 4 days later?
Clear-headed,
Still injured?
still injured.
Do you know what time of day or night it was?
It was evening time.
And you weren't on any medication, right?
No, they actually had prescribed medication. I just didn't feel I needed to really take it.
Okay. The reason I ask is that you say in the written statement that Mr. Copenhaver didn't say anything and just jumped on. You were pretty clear in both the preliminary hearing transcript and yesterday that he said what we've been referring to as WTF.
Correct.
He said that?
He said that loud and clear.
Okay. Just an omission in the statement?
Well, my first reaction when the lights come on, I saw him, is thinking, well, what do we say now? Because it's going to be a conversation in my mind, but I get the WTF and then,
Okay.
10, 20 hits to the face, so I don't.
Ten, 20 hits to the face or 5 hits to the face?
Over 10.
Can you explain why you wrote 5 hits in your written statement?
Well, there was multiple times being hit. I got 5 in, and then I put my hands up and got another 5 in, and kept going until I pulled them down and flattened them out.
This statement was written while it was freshest, while the events were freshest in your mind,
Yes,
and even before you gave your statement to Ms. Bluth, Mr. Stevens, and Mr. Acuna? investigator opinion?
Correct, before I met with them.
Just 1 second, sir. To what extent did you rely on your written statement when making your statements to Ms. Blue a week or two later?
I'm so sorry, I apologize. What was your question, Mr. Egan?
To what extent did you rely on your notes?
Well, I don't know how to answer that question for you.
Did you bring them with you to the meeting?
Yes,
Did you look at them in describing what happened?
I could have.
You don't exactly recall?
I mean, I don't recall every
Long time ago.
detail of, that particular meeting, with when I looked at my notes and when she asked me a question and when I answered the question, by not looking at the notes or just have the conversation from the top of my head.
Okay. The last line of questioning I want to get into is concerning what you would do when you went to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Can you describe just the sort of the first thing you learned in what I'll call BJJ?
Sure. I remember learning how to do an ankle pick.
What's that?
That's where you put a submissive move around someone's ankle so that they'll want to tap out.
This when they're on the floor or?
I mean, yeah. Thought ankle pick's kind of neat. I wrestled for 4 years, and they don't teach you how to finish a move. They just teach you how to pin someone to the mat and match is over. So,
okay, and then what other moves did you learn? Did you come to learn?
arm bar.
What's an arm bar?
That's where you twist someone's arm around and put leverage on it so that it inflicts pain, so that they want to stop
Behind
fighting
the
you.
back? Is that
Yeah,
behind the back?
could be behind the back or to the side.
Does that involve what's known as a pressure point?
Well, you're applying pressure to someone's limbs, so you're trying to get them to stop fighting you or submit them. That's the whole idea of jiu-jitsu,
Is submission.
is submission.
Did you ever learn a hold that was a restraint hold without the intent of putting someone to sleep?
Yeah, all of them are restraint holds.
Or part of
If you
BJJ?
take a hold too far and you've got leverage on someone's limb, you could rip their arm out, or you could take their head off, or, I mean, anything's possible in a fight. When you go from a fight that's, from training, learning moves and doing semi-live training, and you take that into something that's real, life and death, everything changes. Of course, I learned that for the first time.
Okay. Describe to me the next move that you learned in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or another move.
Another move is a choke around the neck.
And hold on a second, bringing my own arm up around my throat with the elbow pointing out. Is it this type of choke?
Yeah, putting your arm around someone's neck and restricting their air passage.
And that's for the purpose of submission.
Submission.
Another move.
The rest of are really just more to gain control, like putting in a lower guard. We practice the lower guard quite a bit. When someone's in an upper guard and they're hitting you, bring them in to you, so you have to flatten them out so that they don't hit you anymore.
1 second, please. Is that the upper guard? Is that what you described with respect to putting your hand behind Mr. Copenhaver's neck and pulling him in?
Yeah, I was in a lower guard.
That was a lower guard.
I was in a lower guard.
Well, you were in the lower guard.
Yeah, you're going to look at diagrams, but without it, it's kind of hard to understand or visualize, So,
I do know.
yes.
or I do now. Okay, another move.
Well, I'm no jiu-jitsu master, and it's been almost 8-10 years since I did that, so, you know, I'm kind of running out of moves for you. But if
Okay.
you want some training, you got a guy over there, he knows the stuff.
You learn any kicking moves?
Not really, wasn't kickboxing.
Did you learn how to use your weight to drive someone, basically to drive someone backwards, maybe?
Well, I was a collegiate wrestler for 4 years, and it was decent, pretty decent, so, yeah, I learned how to use my weight around, you know, I mean, you have to.
Undefeated, as a matter of fact, in your
Junior year, yeah. Picture in the paper and all.
Very good.
Very good.
All county,
Yeah,
and that's San Diego County.
that was actually Marin County. My junior
Marin
year, I
County.
spent in Marin County,
Still a big county population-wise.
I suppose.
Fair enough. So it was wrestling that taught you how to apply your weight to someone to get them to move the way you want them to move?
Yeah,
And was it that training that made you able to drive Mr. Copenhagen, whether it's his back or his head, that made that dent in the drywall?
yeah, training saved my life.
Just 1 second, please, Your Honor. I'm sorry, just...
It was just clearing my throat, it wasn't, it
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
message.
I'm going to pass the liquor, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's talk a little bit about your wrestling and your jiu-jitsu training. When was the last time you competitively wrestled? What year?
Probably 1995.
And I believe you said during the cross-examination that you had not been to jiu-jitsu classes in about 8 years?
Yeah, I did jiu-jitsu 2005, 2006, around there.
So it's been more than 10 years since you've done any
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu?
guess you had that up, it's close to 12 years.
All right. During any of your trainings, did they ever train you on how to handle situations where someone jumps on you while you're in bed?
No,
In this particular instance, on the early morning hours of August 8th of 2014, was this a fair fight?
no.
Why not?
I was asleep, and I got woke up to being ground and pounded.
During this fight, were you able to use any of your jiu-jitsu trainings? Were you able to get Mr. Copenhagen in an armbar?
No,
Were you able to get him into an ankle pick?
no,
Were you able to use any of your submission moves that you learned 12 years earlier?
no.
Throughout this entire fight, were you concerned about your safety?
Yes.
What was going through your mind?
Try not to die.
All right. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the documents you've reviewed in your, or prior to any of your meetings with Ms. Booth and I. You said you reviewed a police report. When you say police report, are you referring to the report that you or Officer Truax wrote out for you?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't actually review a police report written by other officers about other events?
No, I haven't seen anything else except that, actually. That's only about a page, maybe a page and another sentence.
Okay. And I'll refer to that then as a voluntary statement.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. The statement that you typed out a few days after the incident happened was, did you type that out at the request of the district attorney's office?
No, I decided that it was fresh in my head, and this is much bigger than we thought it would ever be, so I had to get this stuff down.
And why did you decide to do it soon thereafter?
I just wanted to do it while it was as fresh as possible.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach your question?
Yes.
I have those marked as next in orders. Your Honor, the state would move for the admission of state's proposed exhibit 163, the typed statement of Mr. Thomas.
Any objection?
No, there is not.
Okay, submitted.
All righty. With that, Your Honor, am I allowed to publish today?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to have you read significant portions of this,
Okay.
okay? It should appear on your screen. If you want me to blow that up a little bit, I can. I can zoom in a little bit for you. Let me.
You're doing brightness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate your assistance there.
Yeah, I can see it fine.
All right. I just want to read small portions of this, okay?
Sure.
Let's start here where it says Christie.
Christy and I fell asleep at about 1 a.m. in her master bedroom together. At 1:55 a.m., the bedroom door opened and the lights were turned on, and without a word spoken in less than 2 seconds, War Machine jumped on top of me and was pounding on my face with his fists. I had been hit at least 5 times in the face before I could react by covering up my face with my hands. I could feel my head getting hit and trying to cover up as he was still throwing down punches. I reached up and grabbed him by the back of the neck and brought him close to my body to get him off balance and disrupt the mirage of punches he was smashing my face with, and at the same time I put him in guard position, which temporarily stopped me from getting punched. By this time I had taken about 20 hits to the face. As I was holding lower guard and trying to figure out what's next, he bit my right cheek with full teeth. I felt it pushed him away. I tried to get to the side of the bed and foot on the ground, and he attacked me from behind with a stranglehold around my neck. I pivoted on one foot, spinning 180 degrees, and pushed off the bed riser into the closet wall, putting the back of his head into the wall, thus him releasing my neck. The closet wall, the closest wall, I'm sorry, not closet wall, the closest wall.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask you a couple questions. Do you recall during the defense's cross-examination them asking you about why you wrote 5 times being hit in the face?
Because I had felt myself get hit from side to side with my hands down before I could get my hands up.
And are you referring to this portion here? I had been hit at least 5 times in the face before I could react?
Right.
And after you were able to react, there were more punches coming. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just read another couple paragraphs here, and then I'll move on from this line of questioning. If you could read this.
Also, in there I'd said, without a word spoken, I hadn't said a word.
Okay.
Not
All
that
right,
he hadn't
thank you.
said something, but I didn't.
Okay. And then if you'll read this second paragraph for me here, starting with "we landed."
We landed on the floor, and as we came down, he was now on top, throwing more punches at my face, where he smashed down another 10 to 20 hits on my face. I tried to roll and was stuck in a walkway to the bathroom, where he immediately put another strangle choke on my neck. I was looking up at the ceiling of Christie's bathroom thinking, Holy shit, I can't believe I'm going to die in Christie's bathroom. This is not what I expected. He had me good. There was no air and I knew I had seconds before blacking out and dying. I dropped my chin, turning my head at the same time, and ran my hand up my neckline to break his choke. Finally, air. Trying to catch my breath as he started in with punches again, I could tell he was starting to slow down now. He was starting to talk and trying to ask me questions while still trying to hit me and gain a position for another choke. Then he had another choke, but I had a block up, and he started in with the questions.
Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I want to talk to you a little bit about these chokes that he had you in, okay? There was the initial choke, and this is my understanding, please correct me if I'm inaccurate. But my understanding was that the first choke kind of happened when you are rolling off the bed and then he jumps on your back.
Correct.
Okay. Tell me about that choke. Did it impede your breathing?
Yes.
Were you nervous about the hold he had on your neck?
Absolutely. That's why I spun around and kicked into a wall.
The next choke then occurred when you were on the ground.
Yeah.
And that was kind of between the entry that we previously discussed.
Yeah, where those two stairs are.
And this one you said was significant also.
That was high and tight, deep. Yeah, I was starting to see stars, and I was on my way out. So it's either you break through this and you breathe, or you're done, and maybe you wake up, maybe you don't. You don't know what's going to happen.
Okay. In all the chokes he put on you, did it impede your breathing?
Yes.
Of course, breathing indulgence. Thank you, Your Honor, I apologize. The meeting with Ms. Booth and I, the first meeting, back in 2014, was that on the 9th floor of the Special Victims Unit? If you can recall.
I can't recall the floor, sorry.
Fair enough. The somewhat more recent meeting within the last couple of weeks, was that on the 10th floor of the Major Violators Unit?
Yes, that I can recall. That's 10th floor.
And were those different offices at that time?
Yeah, they were. They are different offices.
Okay. Are you receiving any monetary value from your testimony today?
No,
Any fame or publicity?
quite the opposite.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about Ms. McInday. Ms. McInday, did she use any drugs or alcohol?
No. That's why we had a good relationship. Neither of us used drugs or alcohol.
There was a period of time going back to the Monday before the incident. I believe that would have been on August 4th. At that time, you said that you exchanged several different text messages with Ms. McInday because you
Yes.
felt like there was a pulling away or distancing.
A little bit of a distance, yeah.
Okay. Of course. Your Honor, I don't believe there's any objection to these, but for the record, let me put on with the record what the state is seeking to admit at this time. That would be state's proposed exhibits. Sorry, let me go back in order here. 164 through 171.
Any objection?
There isn't.
They're admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, I kind of want to go through these. Are these some of the texts that you received from Ms. Mack on August 4th? This is Exhibit 164.
Yeah, this is our conversation.
All right. And it's about 1:44 in the afternoon on Monday?
It is.
Okay. Down here towards the bottom at 1:54, you say you're not feeling very well.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. Forgot I zoomed in. Thank you, Ms. Booth. Down here towards the bottom, it says that you're feeling bad today.
Yeah, that's right.
You go on to discuss that?
Yeah.
This is Exhibit 165, Your Honor.
Okay.
What are we looking at here?
My texts are in green, hers are in gray. And this is a conversation that we had on Sunday after War Machine had left her residence and on his way back to San Diego.
And you knew that based upon some of the social media that he had left?
Yeah. This was the next day, actually. This was Monday, so he left on Sunday.
Okay. Down here, there's a text message from Ms. McInday's phone. It says, "I know I haven't been giving you enough attention lately. I'm sorry." And then let me show you the next text. This is Exhibit 166. Is this your response?
Yeah, that's my
And
response.
Would you read the green response for me, please?
I say, yeah, there's that, but I know why, so that's why I feel this way. It's out of my hands anyways. You have to do what makes you happy. If you care to talk, let me know. I'd rather see you face to face anyways. Texting this sucks.
All right. And she responded to you. This is Exhibit 167. Would you read that response, and I'll note for you that it's somewhat out of order.
Yeah. I fall easily back into old habits. I don't know if I'm really happy. I don't know how to make myself really happy. I don't know if anyone else does either. I'm stuck in an internal battle with what would be the right thing and what would make me...
Let me give you that further here. This is
Yeah.
the next Exhibit 168.
2, 3, 4.
Right here. What would make me...
What would make me happy? It's not fair to have you, but I love having you around and I enjoy your company so much. You're so sweet and kind to me. You're supportive and compassionate. The way you care for me is like something I haven't
Go back to
felt
the other exhibit.
haven't felt in a long time, but I can't give you 100% of myself and I'm not even sure why really.
And then did you respond to her after that? This is Exhibit 169.
Yeah.
And what is it that you told her? You don't necessarily have to read it, but kind of your summary of it.
It says exactly what it is. I feel you. This is better for us to do in person. There's still a lot you don't know about me, and probably time for us to have a real conversation about all the basics. I'd like to do that tonight, so it's not lingering over my head for another week. And then she decided she'd come over that night. So it was raining, and I told her to drive the Rover because out here it floods.
Just another couple other questions. Yesterday, defense counsel was asking you a question, and tell me if you recall this question, where defense counsel asked you if you forgave Ms. Mack for her part in this incident. Do you recall that question?
Mm-hmm.
What did you responded yes,
Yep.
and what did you mean by that? What did you forgive Ms. Mack of?
Well, I understand the situation. You're a small girl. You've been getting beat previously by your ex-boyfriend. You're scared to death of him. You threatened your mom to kill her that you live with. I could understand the fear factor that is she's engulfed in. And it's like someone coming out of their shell for the first time. How does she know she can trust me? How does she know that I'm not the same kind of person as him?
I'm going to object. That's assuming her state of mind. It's speculation and move to strike the entirety of that answer.
All right, so sustained, I'll strike the last answer and jury will disregard it. So try to ask a more specific question, I guess.
Regarding the incident on August 8th, you said that you forgave her. Did you feel like I guess let me ask you more directly, what did she do wrong during that in order for you to forgive her? Or what did you mean by your answer yesterday? Maybe that's a better question.
Well, I had no pre-warning about that relationship. She hadn't spoken up on the Monday night to me about what was going on with her and him. I didn't know that he had a key to her house. I didn't know that he was planning on coming there, or if she had any plans of him coming there. I didn't know any of that,
Okay,
you know.
all right. During that incident, did you believe, during that attack, did you believe that you were going to die?
Yes, I did.
No, I'll pass the witness.
Recross?
There is not.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, sir. We do appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
State calls Mary Ann Truax.
Good, follow me. Do me a favor, make your way up to the box. Good, step up into the box, put your paws look down, remain standing. Raise your right hand, face that gentleman right there for me.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this action will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Please state your complete name, spelling both your first and last name for the record.
My full name is first name Marianne, M-A-R-I-A-N-N-E. Last name is Truax, T-R-U-A-X.
Thank you.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. How are you employed?
I am employed with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department as a police officer.
Officer Truax, how long have you been employed by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police?
I've been employed for about 6 years.
Are you currently assigned to any particular division or unit?
I'm assigned to Bolden Area Command, Patrol.
Patrol, all right.
Yes.
And are you currently a field training officer or training to become one?
Yes, sir, currently right now.
And what do field training officers do?
We are obviously supposed to train new officers coming onto the department after the academy. We train them, we supervise them, and we ultimately evaluate them until they go through the whole program.
I want to draw your attention to the early morning hours of August 8th of 2014. Do you recall that morning?
I recall it. I do recall it. I just don't recall every single action, but I do recall the incident, yes.
Okay. Do you recall what shift you were working on August 8th?
I was working the graveyard shift.
And what area were you working in?
I was working in Southeast Area Command at that time.
Were you working with any other officers that night?
Yes, I was partnered up with Officer Shephard.
And at that time, was Officer Shephard also known as Officer Shoemaker?
Yes, sir.
When you say you're working with her, is she in the patrol vehicle with you?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Were you dispatched to the area of Pueblo Way, that street?
Yes, sir.
And you recall about what time it was that you were dispatched there?
I don't recall.
Was it the early morning hours at or around 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was the early morning hours. Yes.
And I'm assuming that you responded with Officer Shephard/Shoemaker.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
What were the details of the call that took you out to Pueblo Way?
From what I can remember, it was details what female had called in with an open line. She was screaming and heard banging on the walls.
Now, from your patrol vehicle, are you able to actually listen to the 911 calls themselves?
No.
So the information you had was an open line with a female screaming in the background?
Yes, sir.
What did you do with that information? Let me ask you more clearly.
Yeah.
More directly, maybe. Did you go to Pueblo Way?
Yes, we arrived in the neighborhood first. I remember unrolling my window to see if we could hear anything, first use my hearing, vision, things like that to see if I can see anything, hear anything in the strange neighborhood. We searched the neighborhood with our spotlight to see where the addresses were, because they're pretty large homes at that area, and then the addresses aren't really visible like they would in a regular neighborhood. So we're looking around, we're shining our spotlight, and then we located the address that was on the call. Do you want me to go through everything?
Yeah, let me stop you there and ask you a couple more questions. When you were initially dispatched, did you know exactly what address or residence you were going to?
Yes, we knew what residence we were going to, yes.
And how was it that you were able to obtain that address?
Well, we have a website, and I'm unclear exactly what this entails, because I'm not an expert.
Only tell me what you know.
It's called Gizmo, and how it was explained to me is that it's a website that the dispatchers use. They get the latitude and longitudes from the cell phone. I don't know how they get that, but they get that information. And then the website, it drops a pin on the location of the latitude and longitude decimal points.
Okay.
And then that's how we got the address.
Okay. And do you recall that address being 3482 Pueblo?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And that was the address that Gizmo identified?
Exactly, Gizmo. Yeah.
So what did you do when you arrived at 3482 then?
Well, from what I can remember, we went up to the door like we would normally. I don't recall what the male was doing. I don't know if he was already out there or not. I don't recall any of that, but I know when we did talk to him, nonchalant, just, hey, nothing's going on, he was just, why are you here, kind of deal.
Let me ask you a couple more questions
Okay.
regarding that. So when you arrive at 3482, there's somebody already outside?
I don't recall that myself,
Okay.
but later on, Officer Shoemaker recalls that. I don't recall that. So
Okay.
you have to ask her about that specifically.
Only testify to
Exactly, I know.
what you know.
So I don't recall if he was standing outside,
Okay.
but we did make contact with him first.
Okay. Then tell me what happened after you made contact with him then.
He said he was,
You can't tell me what he said either, sorry. After you spoke to
well,
him, what happened?
after I spoke with him, we asked to speak with his wife. We spoke with her. He claimed that she was asleep, so he woke her up. She said everything was fine. We didn't see anything in the neighborhood strange, and so that's when we left. I can't remember exactly what we did, but we had left the residence, went to our vehicle, said, hey, everything is code 4 out here. That's just terminology we use for, no emergencies existing right now. And at that point, I don't recall if we'd driven up the neighborhood. I don't recall that, but then I know we eventually left the scene.
All right.
Ma'am, just focus on what you do remember instead of telling us what you don't remember.
Okay.
All right. When you were at the 3482 address, you spoke to a male and a female?
Yes.
Okay. Did you enter their residence at all?
No.
After speaking to them, did you strike that out? I'll move on to a different set of questions here. When did your shift end that night?
It ends at 8 o'clock.
Is that AM?
8 o'clock a.m.
Thank you, Your Honor. After you responded to this 3482 address, were you ever asked to respond to another call that was potentially related to that earlier call?
Yes, we were asked to respond to the hospital,
Okay, which hospital?
Sunrise Hospital.
And what did you do when you got to Sunrise Hospital?
What I did was I went and talked with the male, Corey Thomas. I spoke with him and tried to get his statement verbally.
Was he able to speak to you?
Yes, he was able to speak to me, yes.
Was he able to write out a written statement for you?
No, he was not.
And do you know whether or not a written voluntary statement was filled out?
Yes, I do.
And how was that done?
I went ahead and wrote it for him. He told me, and I wrote it out.
Did you attempt to be as accurate as possible with his statements?
Yes.
What else did you do at the hospital after you spoke to Mr. Thomas?
I went to the female victim and asked her, I gave her a, what we call a consent to search card, so other officers that were at the actual residence, her residence, could gather evidence. So that's what I did.
And this consent to search card, this would give you permission then to enter the home to do a search?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Were you successful in obtaining a consent to search from Ms. McInday?
Yes, I was.
I want you to describe as far as what you can remember, can you describe the injuries of Corey Thomas for us?
I don't recall.
This was several years ago.
This was, yes, 2.5 years ago.
What is the purpose of of patrol officers when they initially respond to a potential crime scene, when they speak to witnesses? What's kind of the purpose of the patrol officers?
Well, we want to get the initial story. Pretty much we just want to get the initial story to document it and then ultimately write a report. But we're there just to get the story initially right then while it's still fresh.
And after you get that story, what is it that you guys do with the case?
What we do is we'll document it on our crime report, and then then at that time we would call the detective detail that would cover whatever. If it was domestic violence, we'd call their detail. If it was a robbery, we'd call robbery, and then they would respond if needed.
In this particular case, do you recall whether or not any detectives responded to the hospital?
Yes, the domestic violence detail detectives responded and came to the hospital.
Of course, I'm going to show her. Couple more questions. Can you describe Corey's demeanor for us when he was at the hospital?
I don't recall specifically what his demeanor was. It was a long time ago.
I'll pass through this.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Yep.
I just wanted to ask you a couple questions in regards to your scope and your experience.
Okay.
You said that you're currently training field officers, correct?
I'm currently now, I haven't technically started with getting new officers, but I technically am a field training officer.
And you've been employed for 6 years?
Yes.
And what type of training did you experience?
What type of training?
Yes.
The academy training, just, 6 months of the academy. Other classes, we did defensive tactics, we've done, I've done some narcotics trainings, things like that, just typical police training.
You stated that you show up on scene, you document initial statements, correct?
Yes, that's one of my duties, yes.
And are these statements typically recorded?
They're typically written first when I show up, but the detectives could record it later. So me, no, I don't record statements.
Okay, now you handwrote Mr. Thomas's statement, correct?
Yes.
And after writing out the statement, did you give it to him to review for accuracy?
I don't recall.
Typically in your training and experience, when you deal with a witness, after writing out their statement, do you have them review it?
What I typically do is I will review it first, and then I don't typically give it to them, but I'll read it out to them and say, hey, is this what you want to say, or is this what happened?
And this statement that you had taken down, he signed it, correct?
Who did what?
Mr. Thomas, you signed this statement, correct?
I don't recall.
Why would you have a witness sign the statement after you write it out for him?
Because he or she still has to, I don't want to say swear to its validity, but at least saying that, yes, what I'm saying is true.
And you said you were working with your partner, Shoemaker, correct?
Yes, sir.
And here in the police report it says McInday completed a voluntary statement by audio interview, and Thomas completed one by dictation to a responding officer. That would have been you, correct?
Can you read that again? I'm sorry.
McInday completed a voluntary statement by audio interview,
Okay.
And Thomas completed one by dictation to a responding officer.
Yes, that would be me, yes.
And that was you.
Yes,
And
yes, sir.
what did you do with the audio recorded interview?
The auto recording, I didn't do anything with it. That wasn't us as patrol officers. That most likely was a detective who did the audio recording.
And were you familiar with that audio recording?
I'm not.
And you're not familiar with who took that audio recording?
I am not.
Now, you said when you were dispatched down Pueblo Way, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you arrived, you rolled down the windows?
Yes, sir.
And approximately what speed were you going down the street?
I don't know. I don't recall.
Um,
I wasn't driving.
Okay, but you rolled down the window so you could hear, correct?
Yes.
And so I presume were you moving very slowly?
Yes. I just don't know the speed.
Okay. And how was your hearing?
Oh, pretty good.
Do you have any problems with it?
No.
Okay.
Nothing out of the ordinary, no.
Okay. And did you, prior to getting to 3482, did you at all get out of the vehicle?
Before arriving, no.
No?
No.
And so when you got to 3482, at that point, you exited the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And was that both you and Shoemaker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And upon arriving at the scene, was there a garage door open with two individuals smoking inside of the garage?
I don't recall.
You want to take a second to think about it?
Excuse me?
Would you like to take a second to think about that?
I don't recall.
And you said you spoke with a husband and then a wife, correct?
Yes, sir.
After speaking with the husband, why did you speak with the wife?
We need to make sure that everybody in the residence is not hurt or they need help or anything like that. We need to speak with everyone, especially if there's a female, since there's a female on the call. If there's a female in the residence, we have to speak to them.
And after speaking with both the husband and wife, did you determine whether or not that phone call came from them?
We did not determine that, no. We determined by their demeanor that there was nothing wrong, but we couldn't, put the two together.
Okay. And how did you feel upon leaving? Did you have any concerns for them?
No, I did not.
Your Honor, I asked the witness in regards to what she observed upon arriving at the scene, and she does not recall. I would like to refresh her recollection with the dispatch log. May I do that?
Sure.
Permission to approach?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you familiar with the documentation placed in front of you?
Yes?
And is that a dispatch log?
That is a dispatch log, yes.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review that?
Yep, I had a chance.
After reviewing that, does that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So upon arriving on scene at 3482, what did you see?
Well, this that's typed in here is my partner's words. She typed
So
that in.
what do you remember?
I do not remember him in the garage smoking. I do not remember that. As of right now, I can't remember if he was actually in the garage smoking, or we knocked on the door. I cannot recall that.
And your
In
partner
here
was-
it's saying it was true, but I don't recall.
And your partner was driving, correct?
Yes, sir.
After leaving the 3482 house, did you continue to patrol the street to search and see if possibly that call came from any other house?
Yes, it was a dead-end street, and we just went to the dead end, and we did a slow patrol through there, and then came out, because it's a dead end, we have to, one way in, one way out.
Sure. And approximately how many houses are on that street?
20, 15, 20 maybe.
15, 20?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know the exact number.
And you said that you went by with the windows down. Were you able to hear anything that stood out?
No,
Okay. And did you at all, at any point in time, hear any dogs barking?
yeah, yes,
And did you draw your attention to those houses where the dogs were barking?
no,
You did not?
nope.
Can you describe the pattern of barks? Was it essentially loud and obnoxious, as if to alert you that something was happening? Or was it just faint, as if a dog was recognizing the vehicle?
Just a dog would recognize there's somebody, movement in the neighborhood, nothing out of the ordinary.
And you said that you received from Ms. McInday a consent to search, correct?
Yes, sir?
And did you go back to that house?
No, I did not.
And were you aware of whether or not there was any dogs removed from the property?
I do not know.
Nothing further at this time.
Okay, any redirect? Well, why don't you grab that statement, Mr. Soon?
The state has nothing further.
Okay, all right, thank you, ma'am, appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, next.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Somali Shephard for shoemaker officer.
Oh, sorry. You wait up to the box, okay? Good, step up into the box, remain standing, raise your right hand, face that gentleman right there for me.
I solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this action will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Can you state your complete name, spelling both your first and last name for the record?
First name is Somalia, Somalia. Last name is Shephard, Shepphard.
Thank you.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, Officer Shephard. How are you employed?
Employed with LVMPD as a police officer.
Okay, and just for those of us, or I know what it means, but LVMPD is Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department?
That is correct.
Thank you. And how long have you been with the police department?
9 years and 8 months.
And what is your current position within the department?
Patrol.
And in 2014, were you also in patrol?
Yes, I was.
Just briefly, can you give the ladies and gentlemen of the jury an idea of just the typical job duties of a patrol officer?
Typical job duties as a patrol officer include responding to calls for service, proactive work, making vehicle stops, person stops, taking police reports. Go on, or?
Is there more?
That's the gist of it.
Okay, so hypothetically, a 911 call comes in and units need to go. Initially, patrol are the officers that usually almost always respond first. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, when patrol officers respond, what are your job duties in the very beginning stages of any investigation?
Basically, we want to identify who we're coming into contact with. Just to backtrack, we get details of a call. We respond to that location, and then from there, we make contact with victim, suspect, whomever the case may be, and just do a preliminary investigation, reference what happened, what's going on. If we do have probable cause for arrest and we do have a suspect present, we will make an arrest, but if we don't, then we typically do a police report with the information we did get from a victim.
Now also, if this is a type of crime that needs an investigation, for instance, like, let's say you go to a robbery scene, would it be your role to go get the preliminary details and then either you or your sergeant contact the robbery unit and they take over the investigation?
That is correct.
All right. So I'd like to turn your attention now to the early morning hours of August 8th of 2014. Were you working in patrol during that time period, during that day?
Yes.
And what were could you give us the parameters of kind of the area in which you were patrolling?
I work Southeast Area Command, which pretty much includes everything east of Maryland Parkway, pretty much all the way up to Henderson, mountains up there. So off the top of my head, I can give you the borders, but
Okay. That's good. So I just wanted kind of a general idea of where you guys covered. So I'd like to talk to you specifically about a call that came in through dispatch to you around 1:55 in the morning. Do you remember that?
yes, I do.
Okay. And can you give me an idea of the information that you were given that made you respond to a certain area?
Yes, I responded to a 404, which is a 911 disconnect or unknown trouble unknown trouble call. Details in that call just stated a female was yelling, "Let go of him," and sound like arguing, yelling in the background.
Okay. Now, you don't get to actually hear 911 calls, correct?
No, I do not.
Someone calls 911, they speak with dispatch, and then dispatch communicates with you.
Correct. We get a call on our screen with that information and get assigned to a call.
Okay. So you are assigned, and when that information comes up on your screen, where are you told to go?
To the address on the screen.
And what address was that?
That was 3482 Pueblo.
And do you have an understanding of how dispatch figured out that address?
Per Gizmo, which is basically, I guess, I'm not too good with the technical stuff, but there's a ping on the phone, triangulation, and basically, I don't know if it's their computer, because again, I don't know their job exactly
Sure.
what they do to get that information, but pretty much from there, they just guess this address, or this is the address, and that's where we were dispatched to.
Okay, so do you respond soon after receiving the call in from dispatch or the information?
I believe I wasn't assigned to the call till about 2:15, 2:14 a.m.
Okay, and so if we have information that comes in about that the 911 call came around 1:55 a.m., you're not notified to respond until like 2:12, between 2:12 or 2:15, is that what you said?
So basically, it depends if we have officers available or not to go to it, and kind of once someone clears, or you assign yourself or get assigned to it. So in that case scenario, if it came out at 1:55 but we got assigned at 2:15, I possibly was on a call prior to that one, or when that one originally came out.
So you get assigned around 2:15 to go to the resident?
Yeah.
Okay. When you get into the neighborhood, do you make contact with any residents at the, did you say 3482?
Yes, I did.
Did you make contact with the residents at 3482?
Yes, I did.
When you arrived, were you working alone with a partner?
I was working with Officer Truax.
Okay, and she's the individual who just left the courtroom?
That is correct.
Okay. When you and Officer Truax approached the home, is there anyone in the garage of the home?
The 3482, there is a male in the garage area.
Okay. And I don't want to get into what he said because that would be hearsay, but were you able to have a conversation with him?
Yes, I was.
Did anything seem wrong with him? Did he seem agitated in any way?
No, not at all.
When, because there had been a female heard on the 911 call, do you request him to get his wife so you can speak with her?
Yes, I did.
And did the wife come down and speak with you?
Yes, she did.
Did she seem fine as well?
Yes, she did.
So after your conversations with these two individuals, did you believe everything was fine at that residence?
I did.
And did you then, what's called, close out the call?
Yes, I did.
And then did you then leave the neighborhood?
I did.
Later on, and I should be clear, that CAD, which is kind of what shows what times everything was done, shows that the call was closed out at about 2:30 in the morning. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to now turn your attention to the early, well, not the early morning hours, because it would be later than the 1:55 time period, but around 5, 6 in the morning, were you dispatched to Sunrise Hospital?
Yes.
And what was your understanding of why you were going to the hospital?
The victim referenced a battery 417, or excuse me, what the 400 goes, domestic disturbance call was being transported to the hospital. Units were being assigned to attempt to locate the suspect in this said call. And no one was assigned to the hospital, so myself and Officer Truax went to the hospital to make contact with the victim.
And so did you respond to the hospital?
Yes, I did.
And did you make contact with someone known as Ms. McInday?
Yes, I did.
And did you also make contact with someone known as Mr. Thomas?
I did.
At the hospital, did it ever occur to you that, did you ever make the connection that these were the individuals that were involved in the previous phone call that you had responded to earlier in that morning?
Yes, once hearing the street name, and then again after seeing, okay, well, the statement of let go of him, possibly 2 and 2 together. Also after asking Christy for what her phone number was and matching that to the original call, I realized this is possibly related, and that was probably the 911 call.
Okay. I'd like to ask you some questions in regard to Ms. McInday and Mr. Thomas. As you approached the hospital, were you dealing with one or the other more, and was Officer Truax dealing with one or the other? How did that work out?
I feel like it was a lot of both, a lot of back and forth. I did type both reports for each victim, so there was a lot of going from one room to other room and a lot of stepping outside, make phone calls, and trying to get phone reception. So
I should ask, is the phone reception really bad at Sunrise Hospital?
in that area, yes.
Okay. So in regards to Miss McInday, can you explain to me physically what she looked like upon your arrival?
Oh, geez, her face was completely swollen. Both eyes just puffy, closed. Her teeth were, two of her teeth were missing. Dried blood around her nose, around her mouth. She had bruising on her leg. Just complained of pain. Just traumatizing to see. Just.
Can you explain to me her demeanor?
She seemed scared. She seemed tired. She seemed very soft-spoken, just, I don't know, just scared still.
Was this a hard call to go out on?
It was, again, just seeing a victim like that.
I think that the officer's taking some time to answer her questions. I think there's a little bit of emotion, so I'm just trying to explain. When, I can't get into what Ms. McInday says because that's hearsay, but was she able to communicate to you the preliminary details of everything?
Yes, she was.
Now, as I spoke about in the beginning, and was asking questions in the beginning of your testimony, your job duties there at the hospital, are you conducting a full investigation or are you just getting the preliminary details?
Just the preliminary details.
So when you get those preliminary details, do you record her statement or do you just kind of type out some of the things that she stated to you?
Type and write down some of the things she says to me.
And you said that you also had contact with Mr. Thomas. Do you remember if he had any injuries?
Thomas as well, I mean, just face completely bloody, swollen, just dry blood everywhere.
We had testimony from Officer Truax. He had, Mr. Thomas filled out what's referred to as a voluntary statement. But when I say filled out, he actually orally spoke and Officer Truax wrote that out. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Does that happen in certain cases?
In certain cases, yes.
Why would it be that a witness wouldn't write it out themselves?
If they're unable to, because of, obviously if they're, what's the term I want? Basically, they're unable to write it because either they're shooken up, they're injured somehow, some way, their hand hurts, they can't hold a pen. And in cases like that, we would write it and just put on it written by as told by.
Okay. And it was were you there when Mr. Thomas was speaking to Officer Truax and she filled out the statement?
Back and forth. I would say I was there the whole time, but I was in the room during time to
How would you explain his demeanor while you were at the hospital?
He seemed upset and very angry. Again, just in pain as well, just.
Did he?
Can you object? That's wax foundation.
At this point in time, had you guys located the suspect?
No.
Had either of those individuals identified the suspect who you should be looking for?
Yes.
After you and Officer Truax are able to speak to Ms. McInday and Mr. Thomas, you then memorialize these things in the police report?
This is leading to
I'll rephrase things. Did you then memorialize your preliminary investigation in a police report?
Yes, I did.
So after you fill out your reports, what is the next thing you do?
So basically, the reports were completed probably back at the station due to the fact that I lost my connection with the Wi-Fi. We didn't have air cards back then.
Okay.
But was your question more so what did I do after leaving the hospital?
Yes, what did you do after the hospital?
After leaving the hospital, I went back to the scene, made contact with my sergeant where detectives were at.
And was it your understanding that another investigative unit, such as the domestic violence unit, would be taking over the investigation?
Yes, it was.
After you went to the scene, did you do anything further at the scene, or were you just there making sure everything was okay?
There, making sure everything's okay, making contact with my sergeant before I headed back to the station. And at that point, again, the home was considered a crime scene, so I wasn't able to walk in to see any of that.
Okay. And once you get back to the station, is it then when you're able to upload your reports into the system?
Clarification, and I'm not 100% sure. I do know one of them was checked out to a detective, so I was unable to check it back into myself.
Can you explain how that process works?
So basically we have, we now type all our reports, we don't handwrite them when it comes to incident crime reports. And with that said, it's uploaded into a system, and when it's checked in by you, the user, you are able to access that report. Once you submit it, it'll go to a sergeant, detective, whomever, or if someone were to pull up that event number to view it, they could view it. So if it's locked out to me, I can't edit or do anything new to it. So
someone else had access to one of your reports and was viewing it?
correct.
Would that be common for like, if it's domestic violence detectives that are taking over, would that be okay and common for them to go pull up your reports?
Yes.
Okay, so after you do upload one of your reports, at that point in time, is your job over and the investigation is turned over to the domestic violence unit?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's all I have. Your Honor, that concludes my direct examination. I'll pass the witness.
Thank you. Cross.
Morning, officer.
Good morning.
How long have you been employed with Metro?
9 years, 8 months.
And the morning of August 8th, 2014, you were working with her,
Officer Truax,
and you responded to 3482 Mobile Lane, correct?
that is correct.
And you were describing a little bit about this thing called Gizmo, correct?
Correct.
In the 9 years, how many times have you responded to calls where addresses were provided through Gizmo?
I couldn't count, but probably a few, quite a few.
Can you give me an estimate? Are we talking hundreds here over the 9 years?
No, not necessarily hundreds. It just kind of depends if we get an address, if there's an open line or not. So I guess you would just have to look at how many unknown trouble calls I responded to give you an exact number on that.
Okay, so you said that they use what's called triangulation, correct?
Correct.
And in the 9 years of your experience, do you find Gizmo to be reliable?
At times, yes.
And at other times not?
Correct.
And so you've responded to many calls in which the address was not correct, provided from Gizmo, correct?
That I can think of off the top of my head, not many.
In your training and experience, when you receive these addresses from Gizmo, are you to receive these addresses and understand them to be accurate, or is it, do you know them that it is possible that when they are triangulated, that might not be the exact address?
I guess what you're saying, yeah, if it doesn't, I don't know how it works. Again, I'm not a tech person. I don't know how the computer thing gets the address. I don't know how the cell tower does it, so.
I understand that. I want to know from your state of mind upon arriving at a scene, when you receive an address through Gizmo, do you receive that address and think, this is the address 100%? Or do you know that there's a margin of error?
There possibly can be a margin of error, yes.
Okay. And so when you arrived and you saw an individual in the garage, you spoke with him and his wife, correct?
Correct.
And did you rule them out as being the 911 caller?
I ruled out the fact that no one was injured there and cleared the call.
Okay.
No one
And
called police, no one needed assistance.
at that point in time, leaving the house, did you have any concern that possibly this phone call came from another address?
At that time, no.
No concern.
Again, speaking about Gizmo, I know I've had calls where people are walking and it pings somewhere and I show up in that area, do an area check. I had issues finding the address originally, so I did drive up and down that street and didn't hear any screaming, yelling, didn't see anyone running outside for help.
Approximately how many times did you drive up and down the street?
Probably once, circled back, and then, so yeah, if you count 1, 2 like that,
So just in and out.
up, around, past it, came back, so 1, 2, and parked, made contact.
Okay. So it sounds like you went back and forth at least twice.
Yes.
And in doing so, your partner had indicated she had her window down. Did you also have your window down?
I believe I was driving, so cracked, usually spotlight on, again, trying to look for an address, the number.
And the numbers are listed on the curb, correct?
That I can't recall.
Now, you said that from the scene, you then later responded to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
And upon arriving at the hospital, you made contact with Mr. Corey Thomas
I did.
and Miss Christy McInday?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And is it your job to obtain statements upon arriving at the scene?
If they're able to give them, yes.
Okay. And if they're not able to give them, then is it common for you to write their statements down?
At times, yes.
Okay. And who took down a written statement from Corey Thomas?
Officer Truax did.
And you also spoke with Mr. Thomas, correct?
Yes, I did.
And in the police report, it indicates that there was an audio statement. McInday completed a voluntary statement by audio interview. Did you conduct that?
No, I did not.
Do you know who conducted that?
I do not. I know it was one of the detectives, but it was not me.
And how do you know it was one of the detectives?
From the transcript and the police reports.
I'm sorry, you said from the transcripts? What transcripts are you referring to?
From her audio voluntary, recorded voluntary statement that she gave to a detective.
Did you take down any written statement by Christy McInday?
As in the same as Officer Truax did, just for clarification is what your question is.
Why don't you describe exactly what statement you did take down? Not the words of the statement, but in speaking with her, did you have a notepad or a computer? Did you take down
In
statements?
speaking with her, I typed down, wrote down what she was saying.
And approximately how long did you speak with her for?
Again, I was kind of back and forth, in and out with medical staff working on her. Calling my sergeant, I can't give you an exact number. I can't tell you how long I was at the hospital either.
Okay. And then after leaving the hospital, did you go back to the scene?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do when you arrived at the scene?
Contacted my sergeant.
Did you get out of the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And you said it was a crime scene, so you were not able to go in the house, correct?
Correct.
Was anybody in the house at the time that you were on scene?
That I don't know.
Do you recall at the time of showing back up, was there any yellow tape out?
Yes, there was.
And did you put that tape out?
No, I did not.
Okay. And do you recall whether or not there was dogs present at the scene?
No, I don't.
Now, in the dispatch logs, it says that Jonathan was last seen in the gray or blue Prius bearing the license plate, and then it gives a license plate number. Were you the one that took those notes?
That was updated by a unit who originally arrived at the house.
Is that information you took and entered?
Yes, that I wrote in the police report, yes.
And where was he last seen at?
To my knowledge, at the residence.
And do you know who he was last seen by?
Christie's my guess.
Now, do you hear the dispatch calls as they come through?
Depends, usually yes.
And do you recall hearing a dispatch of which what appeared to be Mr. Copenhaver's vehicle coming back down the street when officers were on scene?
No,
You don't recall that?
no.
Nothing further on?
Redirect?
The state has nothing, thank you.
Right, thank you, ma'am, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Excuse me. All right, why don't we go ahead and take a lunch break till 1:30? During this recess, you're admonished not to talk or converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial, or any person connected with this trial by any medium of information, including without limitation newspapers, television, the internet, or radio, or to form or express any opinion on any subject connected with this trial until the case is finally submitted to you. Jurors are excused. Counsel, stay a minute.
All rise.